Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this lecture given by Olia Leolina. My name is Rebecca and I'm the curator at Arbeit Gallery. We are a London-based organisation who support the development of artists working across digital and emerging art forms. We also support multiple voices in digital culture across the UK and internationally to bring innovative perspectives to art through new technologies. I'm here with Olia Leolina. Hi, Olia.
Hi.
So Olia is among the best known participants in the 90s net art scene. Her early work had a great impact on recognizing the internet as a medium for artistic expression and storytelling. And her continuous and close attention to internet architecture, net language and web vernacular has made her an important voice in contemporary art and new media theory. Olia is also a lecturer, researcher, archivist and GIF model, among many other things. So this lecture is part of our current exhibition with Olia called Best Effort Network. The exhibition comprises a series of new and remade works from 2013 to 2020. And we're showing Summer from 2013, Best Effort Network from 2015 and 2020, and also a new commission called Hosted from this year. You can access all of these works on our website, so do make sure to check them out afterwards if you haven't done so already. In this lecture, Olia will talk about her old and new works, as well as the importance of URLs or universal resource locators within her practice. We'll be live streaming this to YouTube, as you can see, and we invite you to ask questions in the chat box. I'll put some of these forward to Olia at the end of the lecture, but if you have any problems using the chat box, then you can direct message me on our Instagram or Facebook, as I'll be checking these as well. So once again, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll now pass over to Olia.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rebecca, for your great introduction, and thank you very much, Arbeit Gallery, that you organized the show for me, and that actually you did build the show, though these were the final hours before the lockdown, and I still hope that actually there will be the possibility for everybody to go to the gallery and to see it. Because I think we will be prolonging the show, and there will be chance in June. But if not, then yes, there actually all the things are online, and what I'm showing to you was originally produced to be seen on the internet or even on the World Wide Web. The thing I would like to say to you some words about the title of the lecture, Her Majesty URL. Is the lecture actually will be about the addresses that you see in the location bar of your browsers, and I will now start to share my screen with you. It will be another tab. It will be actually another window, and I hope you can see it, and you can indeed read the URLs that I see. So there is a pad on Profolia.org, so it's pad.profolia.org/URL, and please think that it is not, I don't know, my curriculum about URLs, or it is not an official history of the way artists use URLs or anything that has a lot of written in stone. These are my notes for this lecture, and I'm also, I think you should also see my face here, and I will click links, and you are of course also welcome just to open this document in another tab and click links yourself. So maybe some of you could notice that in the description of this lecture, I made a mistake. I wrote then explaining what URL is. I wrote here Universal Resource Locator. Well, I don't know, maybe nobody read it, maybe people who read it are very polite and didn't corrected me or write something angry or sarcastic back to me. But of course it is called Uniform Resource Locator. At the same time, agree that the word universal is nicer than the word uniform. And interestingly, there almost an anecdote, but in fact it's more than an anecdote, it's an important fact from the past. It could have been that we would say universal resource locators and not uniform. I have here a scan, it's a picture, one page from the book that Tim Berners-Lee wrote in 2000, when he decided to sort of rethink, recapitulate, and reintroduce the first years of his project of the World Wide Web. He, in the chapter Going Global, he recalls that in fact, his proposal was to call this address universal, and but there was a big resistance from the Internet Engineering Task Force, and it was in 1992. And as he recalls it, how could I be so presumptuous as to define my creation as universal? So it was, and another thing, he wanted it to be called documents, not resources. So that's why here is UD, and it has to be identificator and not location. But it's actually another and more complicated story. But let's just stay with the universal and uniform. And here, let me quote to you also from the next page. I tried to explain at the session how important it was that the web be seen as universal. But there was only so much time, and I decided not to waste my breath. I thought, what's a name? If it went through the standards process and these people agreed, and all I needed was to call it uniform, as long as I got the right specs, that was fine by me. I was willing to compromise so I could get to the technical details. So universal became uniform, and document became a resource. The story from 1992, a bit before we all actually got online. I mean, now with we all people who had other operating systems and or other computers, so people outside of Next computer community. The next quote, what I have here, it's from a bit later. It's already when people started to have their addresses, people started to have their websites, and people started to think what to do with this address, how to take care about it, how to make it last forever. Or as this quote here says, the suggestions of the Tim Berners-Lee, it is the duty of the webmaster to allocate URIs which you will be able to stand by in 2 years, in 20 years, in 200 years. This needs, though, the organization and commitment. Those who know me know my personal commitment to the URLs, to the address of the web page, and that I would never agree to show a work in the physical space with full screen in kiosk mode, with the URL not visible, as well as I refuse to show web pages as video files. Because for me it is important that there are things that are happening online, that they happen in real time, and that of course that location bar is visible, and that because I believe that the main thing in net art and in general in our communication and our existence online, they happen in this particular line. And I mention now this commitment also to say that in fact it's a lot of work. You need organization, you need commitment. You have to, if you decided that you are serious about the letters that appear here, you have to constantly update your files. You have to be also pay attention to the changes that are happening in protocols, in conventions, and also you just have to be a webmaster and take care that there are no broken links in your works that go into the, because others maybe are not taking care about their locations. So it is, in fact, what you can see in this very old quote. It reminds us that quite early it was noticed the importance of this location, and at the same time that it will be a lot of work to take care about these locations, technically and conceptually. But I also want to say that from the very beginning of the web, the IT companies and providers, the giants and those people who provide the services and spaces and sort of try to coordinate users online and to show to them what they are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, and also the browsers and search engines. So everybody, they are quite critical about the visibility of the location bar. There is a lot of effort constantly and for many years, almost forever, is made to move the users, so to say, ordinary users, away from the URL, to hide it, to maybe make it completely invisible, or to make it so ununderstandable that you would really think that it's not your business. You don't have to understand what's happening in this line. I would like to show now a short video to you. I made it in 2014, and it was in 2015, and it was the moment it was the moment when Chrome on Android decided that actually maybe people should see the URL, but only the domain name. Everything else, subdomains or the files, the paths, some pages, they are not important. I made a small, I called it documentary, that's just called the vanishing part, and it is just 1 minute. It is a screencast from my phone. This is something else here. So it was not some Photoshop or compositing that was happening in this video. The things were disappearing, like so nicely flying away from the names, from the locations, because the browser wanted it to be like this, and also to get us acquainted to the idea that it is maybe if there is something important, and it is a domain name that is important. It is 2015, and you know that things didn't become any better, and all the time comes back this idea that how to try very different strategies of how to hide this information that is in location bar away from ordinary users. If you are following now my file, I tried to recall here the line of the URLs where I did hosted my very first projects. These services don't exist, and for example, this one that was started by Alexei Shulgin in 1995, also it is not on archive.org, unfortunately. But you can see here this signs of time, the history, that it's still Soviet Union, and that it is Moscow State University, and probably it's computer science department, and their machine that was called Sunside. I remember this, that was a big deal actually to, at that moment, and I talk about 1995, to where to put your files, where to upload them online. There were not so many choices, but still there were some, and what name you should use, how to appear online. And there was this nice tilde, if you remember, maybe some of you, that was in front of the name of the person, after the name of the server, and it's then meant that this is a user on this machine. The tilde club is the service that tries to remind people of that days. They use this tilde, yeah, as a sign for the user, but for the user who understands what she or he is doing, who knows what the file transfer protocol is, and can put files on the server herself. Here is another, and I put here the address, my first address on the Design.ru service in Russia, and you see here is there is no tilde here, and this is an I think great story about the past, because I became employed by this company in 1997, and I was offered some money. I was offered a computer, and one of the things that was also sort of not in the contract, but a bonus, a special thing, was that I can keep my files on the server without tilde. So I will not be the user, but I will be some, I don't know. It's almost like having your own domain, to have a folder without tilde. But these are just some memories from the past, and to mention that it was why was it important, tilde or not tilde? Because people did really look at this location bar. They looked what is written there, and this is how they navigate, and this is how they could make some conclusions and some, I don't know, judgments and so on. I put here also the links to the great projects of Heath Bunting from mid-90s that were all about attracting or directing, also channeling attention of people to the location. And this one is such a I don't know, elegant and simple work that he was going in the city and putting this, making this drawing in the streets with this address, and people would come home and write this URL, and they would come to this page, and what they would have to do is to answer to the questions and to give information where have they seen it, how it happened that they came to this page. So it's, I think, an amazing piece of street art and net art at the same time. So they're a wonderful circle of things. And of course, the README that is on the Rational.org as well, where you can, it was a great critique about Internet World Wide Web of 1996, and it's still a very interesting piece to follow and to see what is everyword.com in today's landscape. So there's some, I will leave here the links to the artists, to the great projects that do play in a very interesting way with URLs. But I also want to tell to you that it is not only about the artists who were very conscious about location bar of the browser in the mid-90s. It was just the thing to do. You know that a lot of time and a big part of my life is happening in GeoCities archive, and of course they had people who were on GeoCities, they have only this location, the geocities.com, but they could later they were supposed to express themselves with vanity profile, but in the very beginning these were neighborhoods. This was like you can see here, it was a neighborhood, and then there was a suburb and the name of the house. And as my interviews with the users show, GeoCities users show, they were very conscious about choosing this neighborhood, thinking about what suburb should it be. And but now think, please, you could only actually, you were choosing the folder. You were choosing one folder inside another folder, and these neighborhoods, they were not affecting your page at all. They only could be visible here in the location bar of the browser. But this location was important. These words here, they could tell a lot. I also chose this screenshot to be now on your screen, that it is not so spectacular and maybe not at all GeoCities style, but it is also it brings me to another important part of what I wanted to talk with you about. It says it's about treating the location bar as your command line. So here is the user from Heartland Flats, 4760. He didn't want to provide links here, but suggested to visitors of the page to be a bit more active and to make them themselves. Put a slash after the address of this website, followed by 1.jpg, then press enter and you will view the first page. Continue by changing the number of the pictures to 2 and so on and so on. So, and this is how you will be able to see these pictures. Just a bit, one more step, maybe very unnecessary step. It's easier to make a link, but he wanted to make it like this. Is it a way to maybe to hide some content from somebody who would never understand how to type something in location bar? Is it just a, so to say, medium specific joke? If it's maybe it's a net artist who was on GeoCities and then went to somewhere else, we don't know. But this is, I think, is a precious example of person who makes something online and thinks not only about the in window, but also things that are happening in the location bar. So it's part of your environment. It's a thing you control, and you offer to control it to the others. And I always like to repeat this wisdom that is not mine. I got it from Dragan. I don't know where he got it from. Maybe it's his wisdom. I had to ask him before this lecture, but that's the words are that the location bar of the browser is maybe our last command line. The line where you can, you can give commands to the browser. You can talk with this command. You can talk to Google. You can talk to Amazon. You can talk with Apple like this, or with whoever. There you, because when you type the address, you are given a command, and you type, and typing is also like a command line interface. Something what you have to know, you have to understand how it works. And I can now go to the work hosted that I made, that was commissioned by Arbeit for this show. And again, I would like to thank them for this and for agreeing to host such a complicated piece. Not really gallery-friendly piece in their gallery. So as you know, the work is consists of 70 frames. It's an animation that is made of 70 frames, and each of these 70 frames is hosted on different servers. To see the animation, I ask people to open the tabs one after another, and then to close this one, and to enjoy the animation. Here all this, I think what you could see, these are not these URLs, they're quite different. These are not links. They're really addresses that go to the files in the buckets. These are not friendly. These are not user-friendly lines. These are quite strange combination of letters, as if they are not made for people, and they are actually not made for people. I will not start this animation now, or maybe just for the just as an experiment. I will make an animation of without really following, without opening all 70 frames, and without closing, without following my own instruction, and without closing this one. So this is how the animation should work, and how I should start to swim on your screen if I would do everything right. To put, I went to a lot of services and did put files there. I always had a frame of that was the size of full HD. And services were quite unfriendly and rude, one can say, to my files. It was they were making them small. They were renaming them to JPEG, my PNGs, for example, to JPEGs, or making some, compressing them in a strange way, also resizing the proportions, for example. And this is how the life in buckets is. These are not folders. You are not cannot control anything there. They don't know. There is completely another logic that you don't even have to know and understand. But when I would upload something to the system, and now I want to make this example for you. For example, one of the frames I did put it on the on Google Maps, of the swimming pool where I was swimming, and the project was recorded. So there is. I'm happy now that one of the frames stands for the Leofeta Butts. This is a swimming pool on Google Maps. Okay, but here it is a page. Now I have to take out my file out of it. Let's see. I can. Here it is, for example, easy. I can. Oh, but the image is really too small. This is why it is small like this, because they wanted to be like this, because it was there in preview. But then I see that it is in this LH5 bucket, and this I will never understand. But here is something maybe that it makes sense. It is left for the person, or by a real person was calculated. Okay, then I try to make it here how I wanted it to be. And also then there should be exact height, and it would be 1080. Yeah, and here is my picture in full HD. Maybe somebody who is maybe some programmer is here watching here is laughing about me, but I was really extremely happy that I could achieve it. You know, I felt like a hacker. I felt like a programmer, and that I can control at least something in this world. And here is another example. It's maybe even more funny. So I created a presentation on Penzu.com, and it means that the file was landed up in Amazon's cloud in famous S3 cloud inside there in the bucket, and I see there that it is called big. Yeah, it's big, but in fact it's quite the picture is quite small. It's 800 to 600, but I need it to be full HD, or at least closer to full HD, that it all starts to work. Okay, so it says big, and then and that can it be that it's there things bigger than big? And I said huge, and here it is, my file in full HD. You know, then I don't know, maybe there is something huger than huge, but there were no other words. Just then I write small. I tried small, but nothing was there. And then I said tiny, and here it is. And it is really tiny. And it's some thumbnail 58 to 44. And and I just needed to take this extract full HD file out of this bucket, and here it is. But I also wanted to share now with this with you this conversation I could have with Amazon's cloud, and I was sort of inside, and it was my command line, and I could control something. It reminded me, by the way, about the case that was quite famous, and it was in all mass media some years ago. Somebody hacked, as the title says, man hacks airline computer system to book free business class flights worth 80,000. And this is the headline, and everybody says that he hacked, but in fact what actually happened, it is reported that he canceled the flights to get his money back, but managed to manipulate the URL so that the tickets were still valid. So probably he made something like I just made with the buckets, he went to another folder and saw some codes that were reasonable, useful for him. And this is, of course, also the reason why companies, providers, browsers, why they try to hide URL from us, because it is actually a command line. The works that I would make with the URLs, somehow they became now for me a part of the series that I maybe also retrospectively, now I call it now network portraits, because usually these would be self-portraits, but also I see them as portraits of networks, of network itself. And I say now retrospectively because I did also include in this series the works that were made long time ago, and one of them, Agata Appears. And Agata Appears I made in 1997, and with only one intention, in fact, to make a work that could only exist inside the web browser, and that wouldn't work if your computer is offline. But how to make something that it does not work offline? You have to distribute it for different servers. This is how I skipped a lot of pages now, and this is how Agata, the protagonist of this page, how she started to travel through the internet, such that it's a culmination moment of this project. And here she stays in the screen, but only location is changing. I should say that the work was restored in 2008, so 11 years later after it was made, and the line of people, of URLs, this chain of friends whom Agata was visiting, it's already of 2008. There were other people and other services there that didn't exist anymore. But at this moment, look, it's already 2020, and all the people who host the frame of Agata, they still do it, and it's very seldom that I have to update it. Agata was also such an experience for me at that moment that I realized, oh, there is a lot of attention then to the work and recognition that it is made for online. So it was described, it was mentioned here and there, and then MoMA wanted to have it for their website, but they wanted to have it without showing the location bar of the browser. And because then it would look as if it is, it would have looked as if it doesn't belong to them. But if it is in collection, it should have the URL of the museum. So this is how really this tough times started of me fighting with the world around and explaining that there is nothing more beautiful in this world online than URLs, and no one is allowed to open my projects in pop-up window, no iframes, so only original URLs. At that moment, and it's already 99, to sort of explain to the world how others do it, what is important about the location bar. I made an exhibition on Art Teleportatsiya Gallery that in fact is a more more of an essay as an exhibition, and it collects a lot of examples from 1999 till I think 2003. Then I stopped to update it, of the projects and works that deal in a conscious or provocative or very special or funny way with location bars of the browser. And I can only recommend it maybe to visit it. Many things don't exist. And at that time I made the screenshots of location bars as a, I don't know, as a gimmick, but at this moment one can say that for many works it is the only, this the only thing that is left of them. This ideas to have your content distributed, to be somewhere else, to be not only on the one server, so to be able that nobody is able to watch your work with the computer offline. It also went through some other projects, and I want in this relation, I would also want not to mention only one my projects, but for example, there is a great work of Ellie Harrison, which is called Grid, and she in 2000 she did put she made a lot of pictures of herself for quite some time, where she is eating fast food somewhere, eating. So it was about grid, about a lot of things that about data, organizing data, about also analyzing yourself. And interestingly, she, when she wanted to document this project, all these 33 files, she did put them all on the different hosting services. But all these hosting services, they don't exist anymore, and now it is on her computer, but the addresses of these services that don't exist anymore, they are in the title. They are in the title of the documents. I think when you can't see my mouse over, unfortunately, but you could if you follow this project together. This is, it is another trouble or challenge that on one hand you want to be things everywhere, you want them to be distributed, but then this fun is very fast over. And you can see it with Ellen's project, or for example, the same happened with one of the episodes of Zombie and Mommy, which is Zombie and Mommy Have to Escape, and from Zombie and Mommy series. And we also decided we wanted that people go through different, follow Zombie and Mommy through very different, through the chain of online hosting services. And sort of it had to be an escape from maybe the mainstream internet, or just the journey from the places we don't control. But yeah, now this line is not possible even to recreate. There is GeoCities on web archive, but then it's over. You don't go any further. So it means that actually for people who are not able to come back to conclude this circle and never came back, or for a long time didn't have a chance to come back to this page and enjoy the comic itself. And that's also why I did put it now here on this page as a little surprise, and thank you to people who are watching me right now and maybe saving content from this file. Just now the last links that I have here. There is a work Summer that maybe could be seen as really my manifest and my confession of my love to the location bar. In 2013, I asked a lot of friends of mine. I'd say a lot. It was I had to host a frame of my to host one frame of my animation. Almost everybody said yes, but also it was more people than I expected. That's why it is not just a loop, it is a loop that is that is forking. It's also a forking path, so to say. Because I had to, there are 26 people who are hosting 18 frames at this moment. And again, I would like to use this chance to say thank to all of them that they don't forget my folder, then they move to other servers, and that they make updates. I constantly ask them to make. It's precious, and it's, as you can imagine, very different experience as with if you compare it with my newest work, Hosted. Hosted is the services are knocking my files away constantly, and they don't they remove, they resize, or they introduce passwords or put some layers over it all the time, and I have to find other ways, or I have to upload something again. So it's much more work than Summer, but it is no fun. Yeah, I am really uploading and fighting with these buckets, and in this case, it's always also the the reason to write, to say hello to a person who is hosting the frame. I have here, it was 2013, and I should say that earlier this year, Constant Dullard made his work that was called The Death of URL. And in fact, I would still say that it was great that he made it, because it was, I don't know why it is death. There is no death in it. It is a monument. It's another also way to attract attention to people, to please pay attention, to be excited, to be intrigued of what is happening there. But I also remember that I thought that the words themselves, they really hurt me, the death of the URL, because they think that I never want to die. I want URLs to live forever. And it was one of the reasons also for me to think about Summer. In general, I would like to say that the works that I do for the browser, and this attention to URLs and other things that exist in the browser, the status bar, the title, the way scripts and things work, they my works, I hope that if my works, they have some value, and they have to be presented preserved by some institutions, museums or galleries or enthusiasts. It also means that to be able to see them in the future, you will have to preserve the browsers. You will have to take care about the browsers. You will have to educate future generations of I don't know, of conservators, of curators, and just general public about what the browser is and how it did function, if it doesn't function at all. Or maybe people who do produce, who now and develop the new browsers, maybe they would take in account that there is, for example, such a beautiful thing as Summer out there, and we shouldn't hide location bar of the browser, because it will destroy this charming work. So this is my hope, and it maybe would be also the good end, but let me please show also the another link, the Best Effort Network, that also the work that was remade for this show at Arbeit. Before, it was a symbolic version, I was appearing and disappearing on this carousel randomly. But now, if you don't see me here, it means I'm somewhere else on somebody else's computer. And at this moment, I know that there are quite some people looking at the work, so maybe there you have to wait longer. And in this case for me, it is in fact there more important is that there is nothing happens in the location bar. There is it's always just, it says best effort network. It says that it's something will happen because it's the network is doing its best to bring packets to where they were requested, but there is maybe no guarantee in this. You can see my shadow there appearing. I don't know where I am now, but of course I can also, there is a way for me to check it. If I go to best effort network and see the queue, yeah, I would see that there are 7 people who were there at the moment waiting for me to arrive. Maybe some of you is lucky right now. Another work that was is a part of network portraits made in 2018. In this case, it was not only the web, but different protocols, not only HTTP, but it's Tor. So it's Onion, it's DAT P2P protocol, and in this case I really wanted to make people to make some effort to not only to type the address in the URL, but also to install other browsers and then make some movements on the desktop and put these browsers together, and then to be able to see what I expect you to see. I will not be able to make it for you on this computer, but thanks to Ed Summer, who made it and recorded it on his, you can see how it would be if you arranged everything perfectly and that you go to very different locations on the web, not just locations in the browser, but to different protocols on the internet. So I think I would finish at this moment, and I really hope that I was online all the time. And if there are questions, I'm absolutely happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Olia. There's actually been quite a lot of questions on the chat on YouTube, so I'm just going to head to those now. Okay, we'll start with a question by Laura Angelova. So she asked, when archiving NetArt, like hosted, how relevant is it to capture contemporary users' interaction with these sites, and how can this be done to contextualize the work in future reactivation?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a beautiful question. And I myself, then thinking about how to archive it or preserve it, I didn't think yet about interaction of the person. I think that's of a particular person, yeah, because I would say that at this moment for me the task is to create some sustainable chains of these 70 files that it is and to work with the services that would give a chance to a better than me institution to maybe preserve it and then to give it to people to play around. But it's really, of course, I know how I go through this loop of hosted, but others also, I know that they make also fun of it and skip every second frame or go back and forward, so you can make funny animations, and then it is, it's also, of course, part of the work, and I can't just, I can't record everything. I just can be happy that it exists.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I've got another question here from Christopher McInnes. So he said, I'd like to hear more about what Olia considers to be the wider significance of the obscuring or obfuscation of the location bar and URLs. It's a very esoteric, very specific concern, but it has a much wider implication as to how our relationship to technology is managed, especially in terms of how we orient ourselves within internet space. So maybe if you can kind of expand on that, that would be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I mentioned, there are reasons, or let's say, for all these 25 years that 25 years, it's a quarter of the century that I'm online. There are different steps made to alienate computer users from computers. This is clear, but one of these surfaces where it happens is, of course, a location bar of the browser, and so many times it was presented to us, with us I mean online users, that or if it would not exist, it would be much safer. The web would be much safer. You would be there would be no phishing site. Well, though it's completely the opposite is true. Or there are such things that that happened with the airlines, this hack. This would not happen. Or just you don't have to take care about these miserable technical details. Yeah, this is what we hear all the time. The idea is in general that you have to you should not be go where developers go. So that's supposed to be for the competent, for those who own these environments. But historically, it happened that not on purpose, that it was there, it was visible. And it's important to keep it visible as long as possible, I think, and also to be to make such a crazy thing as I just made, trying to sort of editing my photo in the location bar, and to be, I don't know, to have fun with this. To be excited about this. I just when I was telling this, I recall that my students, they really don't want to go into it. They don't understand why do I want them to put the thing with FTP on the server and then to send to me the exact address of the file, because Olia, can I maybe just Dropbox, or I will put it on Instagram or whatever. There are better, easier things to do, but I try to insist on it, and then I see, oh my God, there is such a surprise and joy in the eyes of the young person who feels like really that now empowered. Yeah, I understand. I put this file on the server, and now it is. I see this file in the location bar, and all this, you can say it's childish and doesn't bring us any further in anything. But it is, it is at least something. It is some competence. It is some control over the environment on a very primitive level, but we really don't have a lot left what we can do, what we can see. And this is also what I wrote in the description of the hosted, that also being able to control what tab I want to open and what to close. It's also something that maybe tomorrow you will not be able to do.
Yeah, Dragon said something quite interesting in response to a question that Jacob Bolton asked. So Jacob asked, I guess in a way we're seeing the address bar becoming more a way for servers to find and follow us via link tracking than for us to find the servers. And Dragon said, I guess without URLs being visible, it would be very hard to discuss this tracking process. And I think that's kind of what you're kind of talking about. You're talking about the visibility of this. So what's the kind of, so Jacob also went on to ask, how do you feel that this kind of changes the purpose and the politics of the space of the address bar?
I don't think really I can add something more with, but in relation to this, of course, you know that all this address bars, they sort of belong to Google, or maybe if it has a competitor search engine, but I don't think that Bing had a lot to say there, or others. Their idea is that the only input field is a search field. Yeah, where you can still type something, and then it is what comes to you when you search for something. It is completely different that when you give the address. Yeah, this unified or universal resource locator, because it really exists, a sort of effect, and search can be always manipulated, and it can be whatever can be given to you. There is the first, it was, it is also the politics that it's always, everything is sold to you as things are getting more convenient, and now you can concentrate on the beautiful things that you should find in friends, or making your profile more beautiful, or enjoy IRL, and we will take care about location bar. And this is like alienation, and once again, alienation.
We've got another question from someone called Anna. So she said, how do you feel about constantly changing and updating the URLs to preserve the artwork? So in the case of hosted, creating the Squarespace website again for frame 23 and letting it expire.
If it is about the the project hosted, then I feel it is just work, and it is like being in conversation or no conversation with just with the computer, or it is a bucket. I also sometimes, the project is quite young, it's only 1 month old, but already sometimes I did leave it unupdated, and there were this, maybe at this moment there are new ones, there were files that were missing. So I feel like I will have to, how it is called, I will lose in the end. This is what I know with the hosted, with this particular project, because there are more and more restrictions, and some how I would say it, just things that happen that maybe completely have no reasons, just they decided to have it like this. Because I wanted to have in the beginning, Rebecca can remember when we discussed it, I wanted that it is quite the animation is smooth. Yeah, I will put the file of the same size to 70 servers, and as soon as they are loaded, it will work. But there are no 70 services at this moment that would leave my file in the size and format that I uploaded it. Yeah, so it's not only updating that I have to do now to keep it alive, but also I have to take care that they don't make my file smaller again because of some algorithm, or to put some overlay over it, and it's happening all the time. But it's almost anthropological, I would say, project. I've seen a lot what I've never seen before. You know.
Yeah, Anna also sort of mentioned in her question, do you think that rescripting your roots to the buckets by uploading the files again and again damages the integrity of the original work?
I am. This is something what I am thinking about right now. Because in the beginning I took a very challenging, put files into very challenging buckets that are not allowing hot linking, and it's difficult to fish your file again out of there. So, and they have more obscure also URLs. But they are kicking me out, and I already made some compromises and went to easier services. Yeah? But then I don't like this compromise. I think I will try again to go inside the challenging, the walled gardens, so to say. Wall gardens or wall buckets.
Mm-hmm.
Can I join now?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. It's Nimrod here. I have a couple of questions. First of all, is about the use of social media where you don't, or apps in general, when you don't have URLs anymore. And you said at the beginning that you don't want your work to be shown as a video. So where does, it seems like things are really going towards this non-URL experiences online. So how can these things be experienced? And the second one, I think, the second question kind of relates to the situation that we are in now, that the show is on at the gallery and experienced streaming. So it's at the gallery online, and we experience that through streaming. So it's kind of layers of streaming and onlineness that I think adds another layer to this whole experience, this whole kind of layering. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you want to comment me on this?
I think it works. It's very interesting when we, first of all, when we did the opening, you said it was the first opening that you ever done online. And I think it works very well in that context with everything we're experiencing. But it's just whether you think that this is the right way to experience it in an exhibition context.
Mm-hmm. I am... how to say, I am very much enjoying as an artist the situation that now there were so many people surfing with me together through the bed, and we were all online, and I always somehow what I was asking people, what I was claiming decades ago, that net art is to be experienced at home, now it is experienced at home. At the same time, I think we now with this exhibition, the gallery and me, that we are also in a special situation, not as others who had to really to cancel, because in the last days you did build this and it is also running. Yeah, so it's like a ghost exhibition, and I really love to go online and to look at the works there alone at the gallery. And in this case, you saw how they are shown in the gallery. For example, the host, that there was a special. There is a version of it. There is no user who opens the tab. This is, as they say now, artificial intelligence that is doing it. And this is that is a way for this to exist in the gallery and even without the audience. Yeah, but what you said, your first questions about the things that that are done by the new generation of artists today, those who only, for example, would work on Instagram, for them browser does not exist at all. Yeah, it's only maybe the picture, or I don't know, some other mechanisms, or the app. Yeah, it is, but some resistance is of course needed also for the artists who are working with Instagram. I truly believe that you can be on Instagram and can be a net artist, but you should then engage yourself more with the app, so to say.
So maybe this is the death of the URL that Constant Dullard was talking about.
I think he was talking about something else.
We've got another question from Gretchen Andrew, who I think you've worked with before earlier. She says, hi, can you talk more about the gap between things that are written or visible for humans or users and those that technology companies feel are not? So she's talking about the disappeared URL being a huge example of this.
What can I say more about this? If I would say about the path and the Vanishing Path, this documentary, I was surprised when I saw it for the first time, because it was made in such a pleasing aesthetical way, you know, that you would somehow, I don't know, maybe you had to, the idea was that you look at it and you admire the effort of the developers to make this vanishing file names in your browser, like as if, I don't know, like really big design effort, and you would admire it and you would forget that they exist. But there are some other, they're all the time, so this did not work. And in general, hiding URLs at this moment does not work. There are still technical reasons why they should exist. And plus to it, a lot of people bought new top-level domains that they want to show off with. Yeah, there are so many words now that you can, with which you can show off and be proud and create some meanings. I should say that I find a lot of this new top-level domains not very exciting, and I myself, as a net artist, I would never register a .art domain. Yeah, but I'm very thankful that such things exist, because it means that there are forces that would want that location bars are still visible, that the addresses of the lines are still visible.
I guess I'm just looking on YouTube to see if there's any more questions. Okay. So Gretchen also mentioned to maybe talk about other examples of things that technology companies do that are for users. Oh, sorry, I think maybe this got cut a little bit. I'll come back to that one. So I guess I have a question about Hosted, and kind of the way that the process is quite laborious. So it requires a lot from the viewer if they want to access the work. So I guess I want to address this idea of labor with you and with online works in general. So with Hosted, you're situating the labor at the point of the viewer. So you're making this often invisible labor kind of visible. And it kind of demands a certain level of knowledge about how to work with the internet, I guess. So why was it important for Hosted to show this labor?
To not to be an automatic, to make some effort to do to make at least something. And I actually know that it's made already as convenient as possible. There is a 70 URLs and the next one is highlighted for you. Yeah, so nice. I was to the audience of the project, so this part is there, but still I wanted that people click each link themselves. Also was maybe to share with me to feel that it was a lot of these are a lot of files, that is a lot of frames, and to feel that you are go somewhere else all the time. I think all this adds to this. And as I said, to make some more additional clicks. Maybe it sounds like a bit strange, but there is from each app or product that we're dealing with, it reduces the amount of actions you have to make to achieve something. And this is like I think it's even a paranoia already. Yeah, so you and in the end, it's what we have, that each app is just doing something that only demands one click, or maybe not at all. Yeah. So there is in general this idea that it could be completely another conversation, but the situation is that you don't have to do anything at all. Yeah. Though I think that we have to change the paradigm and the products, the interface designs, and in general new media product developers and companies should finally rethink and the general paradigm, the direction how products are developing, and maybe not maybe, but I would say to deliver products that demand the learning curve, to deliver products that should make one than just more things. Just, could be as a rule, like we have this four laws of robotics. Yeah, what robots are allowed and what not allowed to do. The same could be for the apps. So there you have to learn it. The app has to make more than one thing, and there should be always left gaps for person to enter information herself, or there should be something missing that that can come only from you. Yeah, it's not maybe so much connected to our conversation now, but it is connected to the disappearing URLs, because everything sort of disappears.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This has been a really great chat, and I'd also actually just like to mention thank you to Arts Council for funding the show with you as well. And thank you to everybody who's watched and who's asked a question, and thank you to you, Olia.
Yeah, I also would like to thank everybody who was, as far as I understand, on YouTube now and talking in comments, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad we managed to be linking between different services.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Nimrod. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Good day.
Bye.
Bye.